the steady state oxygen uptake is higher than the lower workload. Okay? Also, after we stop, this is end of work. If it's a higher workload, see, when can we return back to resting level? So the heart may be 120 heart rate for the higher workload. For lower workload, the heart may reach just to 100. And then we stop here. If you compare these two, the higher workload will return back to 72 longer, much longer than the lower one. Right? Does that make sense to you? If I ask you to jog faster, and then ask you to stop here, and then you monitor your heartbeat, the higher workload, that means the faster you have to jog. It takes longer for you to return back to resting level. So this indicates, this tells me, if I ask the worker to wear a smartwatch to continue to monitor the heart, the heartbeat, the heart rate, by this information, the time returning back to resting, by monitoring the heart rate curve, this gives me very useful information. Also, if the person is very fit, very strong, very healthy, this is called recovery. The recovery is faster, much faster. If this person is weak, the recovery takes longer. For older people, the recovery is much, much longer. This is very useful information. So today, we are at a better position to utilize physiological ergonomics information to make the smart watch really smart. 10 years ago, we don't have this. So we have to ask people to come to the laboratory, to work, to exercise, to do the job, and then measure. That's ergonomics in the laboratory. Today, we can do a lot of things. We can do a better management. We can do health. We can do all these. If you know all this kind of data and information. But by just looking at the heart, how the heart returns back to after a certain activity, by this curve, I know whether this person is fit, is healthy or not, how fit the person is. Not only for the worker, but also for just, many activities. Okay, so let me summarize. This is called adjustment period. At this adjustment period, the heart is coming up to catch up with the activity requirement. The oxygen is coming up. Actually, the breathing is coming up because you need more oxygen. And this state is called steady state. Steady state. It's in balance, in equilibrium. The energy you produce is the same as the energy required by the job. This final stage is called recovery period. Recovery. After the end of work, okay, you are recovering. Okay, now, with this graph, there's some further information. In the adjustment period, what happened is, you are already working for that conveyor speed. It's fixed. So now let's look at this, say this thick one, the heavy workload one. The job requires you to go up here. The job needs this energy. However, you start from here. So you are lagging behind. You cannot make, because your heart rate is still quite slow, 72, 80 something. If the final one is the 120 beats per minute. But here it's not 120. This area, your heart is not catching up. However, you're already doing. Where is the energy from? Obviously, the oxygen supply is not enough because the heart rate is still below 120. Suppose you need 110, but you start from 72. It takes about 3 minutes to 5 minutes to get to the here. So during this period, you don't have enough oxygen. It's actually oxygen deficit. The muscles cannot get enough oxygen. So what does that mean? You are not using number 4 equation. You are using number 3. It will produce lactic acid. So you are accumulating lactic acid because during this period it is anaerobic. Part of it is aerobic, part of them are anaerobic. You are using equation 3 to get the energy. The larger this area, the worse. Because the higher accumulation for the lactic acid, right? Okay. Usually this will happen when you imagine this in your job. Part of it is heavy, is hard. Some part of them are easy. During the easy one, you are here. And then the next moment you are here. And then the next moment you are here. And the next moment here. Whenever you start from the light workload to the next heavier one, you are experiencing this. So you will be using anaerobic. If you can design the job always constant, that's impossible. It's like keeping your car at a constant speed all the time. But you know this is impossible. You have to slow down if there's some slower cars in front of you, right? So you'll be doing something like this, going like this. And whenever you are at a lower heart rate and then climbing up to a higher heart rate, you experience this. This is called oxygen deficit. So you will be accumulating lactic acid during the 8 hours, obviously. Total lactic acid will be continuously to accumulate. Okay, now, Here, what's interesting is you produce more than you need. Because here you already reached the end of work. You don't need energy, you don't need to consume energy. But you stop the work. But the heart is still from the higher state to finally to the resting level, 72. Suppose here is 100. So your heart pumps more blood than you need. And it still goes to the entire body. So in this case, you give more, you supply more energy than necessary. So this area is, we call oxygen debt. Why do we call it oxygen debt? Because actually you supply more than you need to return the deficit. Here, you are in short of this amount. Here you return them back. It's like paying back your debt. So this is called oxygen debt. The oxygen being supplied, being given to the body, okay, they are actually helpful for the person to recover. Okay. So if you compare the heavy workload versus lower workload, you know this area is much larger than the lower one. Because this lower one is here, right? Like this triangle, right? The lower one is like this, right? I cannot draw. Interesting. Usually I can. I cannot draw. But anyways, see, compare with the lower workload, this triangle is like here. This is steady state already, and then this triangle is here. So this triangle, the area is much smaller than this. So that means, if your design is at a lower workload, of course, the accumulation of lactic acids is small compared to the heavier work, the higher workload. Okay. Got the idea? Now, however, in the job, real workplace, this happens a lot. It's called intermittent work. Imagine this is a time for 8 hours. Sometimes this, and then, right? It's impossible to maintain a fixed. So if we monitor the heart rate or the oxygen uptake, it goes like this. Start from a low level. It's a work period, and then almost to the steady state. but then you got a chance to do something else, and then it goes down. And almost to recover, but not fully recover, not fully recover. And you have to do the next work, bout. So you climb up from here, and then after some time you're getting some further rest. Okay? When we say rest, it may be not completely rest. It's just other type of job. Some heavier, some part of the job heavier, some part of the job lighter. And then not fully recover, you have to do another one. What's going to happen?